So we're doing a training on caring for each other. There's going to be two parts of this. I'm going to do the first half on caring well for the people that we have, and then Joy and I are going to switch seats, and he's going to talk about caring about new people that are coming in. I really, number one, I'm very thankful that you're here. It shows that you're very interested and hopefully gifted in caring for people. And I know you guys are gifted in this area in ways that I am not. You know, it's often the loud, upfront, boisterous people that get the attention, both credit and blame. But the servant-hearted, caring, hospitable, loving, encouraging people are behind-the-scene ones, and you guys are just crucial, especially to this new Advance initiative. And I really want to convince you of that, of how fundamentally important caring for each other is going to be as we're moving forward.
That's tough. I'll go check it out.
Yeah. Ask if they can start in another room somewhere, whatever they're doing.
If they're making all the noise.
Yeah. The trustees are up there.
Trustees, yeah.
I've heard from some people that are hopeful and excited and encouraged about our future and about this current Advance initiative, but I've probably heard from more people, either directly or from secondhand from people that have talked to people, that are feeling busy. They're feeling stressed. I've heard overwhelmed. And as we move forward in this Advance initiative, people will be busier, and there'll be miscommunication, and people will get angry, and there'll be resentment, and there'll be things that they don't understand, and people will be afraid of what's going to happen, and all sorts of emotions. And it's just crucial that we're loving our people well and ministering to them at the same time as we're growing and trying to attract new people. It doesn't make sense to attract new people if that process overwhelms our people's capacity and people fall away and we start losing people. We've got to intentionally, aggressively, overwhelmingly care for our people well, and it's just as important, just as crucial, just as fundamental as reaching the new people if we're going to build a flourishing and a healthy church. And that's why I'm utterly dependent on deacon-type people and caring-type people that have a heart to minister to those that we have. And I'm hoping to equip us this morning to do that in a more intentional way. So I'm hoping to open your vision of what can be accomplished, particularly some of the new technology that we're implementing as we care for one another. A pastor, I just read this last week, a pastor recently did some research. He administered surveys to churches, and he discovered a connection between loving people well, caring for people well, and certain things in the church. And this is the first thing on your outline that you'll be able to fill in if you want to. It says, the more, the better, the love, the care, and shepherding. He discovered the less bickering and gossip and complaining there is from people feeling like that they are cared for well. It stops backbiting, it stops gossip, it helps the positive energy in the church. The more, the better, the love and the care, the more worship that happens. The more, the better, the love and the care, the more people that are willing to volunteer for things. And finally, the more and better the care, the more giving that happens financially. This whole realm utterly transforms the attitudinal environment of a church. When people feel loved and cared for, it really is the foundation of all other good things happening. And what we're really talking about here is what I call one anothering, looking at the one another's in Scripture. And I have the second and last thing I'm going to pass out to you here this morning. So we can take one of these and pass it around. I made a list of all the one another's in Scripture, how we are to be treating one another, and I lumped them into 5 different categories. So they kind of fall under love, unity, serving one another, encouraging one another, and having humility with one another. What I would like you to do, I would like you to take just a couple of seconds and look over that list and find either something that you think is particularly needed in our church in this season, given what I just explained about added stress and pressure and busyness, something that our church specifically needs, or, as you look over this list, something that you say, hey, you know what? I can do that. I'm good at this. God gifted me in this. And you're not bragging by saying that. By owning God's strength in you, you're honoring him and you're honoring this church. So don't hesitate to say, hey, you know what? I can do that. I'm good at that. And those two things, you might recognize something that is a need, but the thing you're good at might be something else. And that's fine too. So just take a couple of seconds, look that over, and speak to one or both of those things. Something you think our church needs in this season or something you are good at. And if any of you choose the KISS one, I'm going to think bad things about you. So. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna pick it.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Oh my gosh. Somebody got to ceiling.
I'm glad this training is just going to be an in-house thing and not a public thing on video, huh? Something our church needs and or something that you're good at or can offer to this body. Awkward silence.
Yeah, I've learned this from work. I like being hospitable to people, whether they're in, part of us or coming in for the first time.
Great. So when I think of hospitable, I think of made to feel welcome is the first thing I think of. That's great. Anyone else?
Excuse me, my goodness.
I'm a good encourager.
You are. She's a good encourager.
What did she say?
Encourager.
I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
Encouragement. We were talking right before you came, the general tenor of things these last 7 months, if not longer, has been urgency. We grow or we die, and that is true. And to institute change, you have to convince people that it's urgent if you are in an urgent season, which we are. But that gets old and that gets overwhelming, and we've just been talking about in our leadership team, how do we transition into hope and encouragement and letting people see the future that God has for us also. Both are necessary. We've got to be acting out of urgency of the season, but we need to be encouraged also. Anyone else? You guys know you're good at this stuff. That's why you're here.
And Joey, I have to tell you, after our financial meeting the other evening, Jeff said, I feel excited for the first time after your presentation the other night. So you can-
Yay.
That's cool.
That's encouraging.
That's it. I know.
Good phrase for it there.
All right, I want to hear from one more person at least. Something our church needs or something that you can offer.
I think we need to be in harmony.
In harmony, under unity. Yes.
And about kind of going in the same direction. Maybe not, don't need to all think the same, but be in harmony about what we're doing.
And I think that goes back even to what I said at the beginning. When people feel loved and cared for, they'll gossip less, they'll bicker less, they'll complain less. It doesn't mean that there won't be problems that come up, but hopefully they'll be handled healthfully, rather than backbiting behind people's back. So this is what I'm really asking us to consider, is how we can one another, each other, better and more. And the things listed on here I think will be a good thing for us to keep in front of our hearts and our minds as we're thinking of how we can minister to each other. Next thing on our outline, what do people need from you? And I have 3 A's there. The first one is availability. The second one is, and we'll go back and talk about these. The second one is authenticity. And the third one is acceptance. So, as you are having contact with people, face to face, via email, phone calls, any conversation you have with the purpose of caring for them, ministering to them, loving them, encourage them. Availability. It's a lot of times a matter of time, being available when someone needs or wants to talk. Knowing that you are available, knowing they can call you if they need to, knowing that you're not going to feel inconvenienced or make them feel bad that they called or asked you to step in a corner and talk with them so they can share your heart. Just a couple Sundays ago, Mary was talking to me after service that a mutual friend of ours was struggling with something and found another person and just asked to talk, and they spent quite a time after church sitting down and talking, the one brother ministering to the other who was just feeling down. That's being available. We have to balance availability with boundaries. Everyone needs time alone. And your boundaries might be different than my boundaries. Maybe you would ask someone, please don't call me during my dinner hour. Maybe your boundary is, please don't call at 3 a.m. unless it's a crisis. Maybe your boundary is, I don't have 6 hours a week to devote to this one person. Maybe it's 1 hour a week. So there's a balance between having availability, but also setting boundaries. Authenticity, we all know what that is. Being real, being sincere, not having pretenses, not hiding our own weaknesses, not putting on a mask, not trying to look holier or more superior, just being real. We all struggle with very similar, often the same types of things, and we can very easily say, I know what you're going through, I've been there, and we can share the strength that we have without it sounding trite and superior. So we have to be authentic. Authenticity has to be balanced with not airing your own dirty laundry. If someone is sharing a terrible thing that they've gone through or happened, it might not be the best time to talk about how you were wounded emotionally or sexually or things, or the time you robbed the bank or whatever. There is wisdom between being authentic and not airing our dirty laundry, particularly when it's not helpful. And sometimes you do that because we're looking for attention. We want people to know that I'm suffering as much as you are. And again, that is taking the attention back on you rather than the person you're trying to minister to. And sometimes it will just do more damage than it will help if we air our own dirty laundry when that person is looking for help with their skeletons in their closet. So balancing authenticity with dirty laundry. And last, acceptance, unconditionally loving people. A bedrock principle in youth ministry, but applies in all ministry, is never be shocked by anything that you hear. Love people regardless of what they did. They feel bad enough about themselves and what they did, and they don't need to see the look of, oh, you did what? When they tell you. Unconditional love, acceptance, grace, forgiveness, no matter what you hear, whether it's something little or whether it's something big. They need to be ministered to in that time, and they need a loving and accepting presence. Acceptance has to be balanced with challenge. Many people that are in a season of needing to share because they're struggling, they might even need to vent. It can easily turn into long-term wallowing in things with a victim mentality that I have no choice, I can't help myself. And there are times where we need to lovingly challenge people. That's not unloving. That's not accepting them. It's the most loving thing we can do, is lovingly challenge people to further maturity and deeper maturity in Christ. But it's a matter of balancing those two things. Acceptance unconditionally, and when the time is right and when the Spirit is moving, we challenge lovingly to move them on. The next question on your outline says, how can we interact with people that we're ministering to? And I have a nifty little anagram there, love spelling down. It looks like the E's spilled out because there's 3 of them. The first one is listening. The main thing people that are struggling need is to listen. And I'm not asking you guys to be counselors in an official sense. There will be times when you take on the mantle of counseling, giving helpful encouragement and advice, but I'm not asking you to be counselors and handle the big stuff. And we're going to talk more about that. Most people just need someone to listen, and that it's so powerful and so healing when people are just willing to listen actively. You're engaged with your eyes, with your posture, with your presence. You're aware of the distance between you. You're aware, based on the relationship you have with them, if encouraging touch, hand on the shoulder, hug kind of stuff. We're engaged and we're active. We're present. We're letting that person know that we're there, and we're listening to them actively. We're not quick to give trite answers. I probably struggle with that. You just get into problem-solving mode. I got the answer. Let me give you the answer. People that are logical and rational tend to struggle with that. People that are uber responsible tend to struggle with that also. And that kind of describes both of us in our relationship. I'm the rational one that wants to give quick answers, and Kathy's the uber responsible one that can sometimes want to give quick answers. We've got to listen well. It says in Scripture, be slow to speak and quick to listen. It doesn't mean that there aren't helpful answers to be given, but you've got to be able to listen to that person's heart first. The O is offer. You're offering your time. We already discussed that under availability. You're offering people hope. You're offering them support. You're offering them encouragement. You're offering them grace, as you all write frantically. And believe it or not, I am intentionally trying to speak much slower than I usually do, as David will attest to, and
You're doing that.
trying, yeah.
You really are.
Encouragement, grace, you're offering forgiveness, and perhaps most difficult, talking about acceptance versus challenge, you're offering them accountability also. If your relationship with them extends to the place where they are open to you speaking into their life in a relational way, we can offer them accountability for their choices, for their actions, for their behaviors, for the things they think and feel about themselves, good, bad, and indifferent. We can offer them accountability. V, under love, is validate. We're validating their courage. Hey, it took a lot of courage for you to share that with me. I just want you to know I really appreciate that you honored me with telling me this deep thing that you had. I just want to tell you it took a lot of courage to share what you've been going through. Thank you. We're validating their courage. We're validating their emotions. Man, it makes perfect sense that you feel the way you do. I'd feel the same way if I went through that. It's not wrong that you feel that way. You've been hurt. I'd feel that way too. It's perfectly all right to feel hurt. We're going to validate their worth in Christ. If people are going through difficult times, be it just stress and busyness and overwhelmed, or if it's something horrible that's happened to them, one of the natural responses to feel very guilty and ashamed about either what they're going through or how they feel about it or how they've responded to it. And they will think bad things about themselves. And we can validate their worth, that they're children of God, they're created in God's image, and that God loves them unconditionally and that you love them unconditionally. We can validate their character. You're not a bad person for going through this. You're not a bad person for feeling this way. In the case where they are a victim, if something bad happened to them, this horrible thing happened to you at the hands of someone else. This isn't your fault. You're not a bad person because this happened to you. And then we can validate their potential. My brother, you are going to get through this. My sister, there's hope at the end of the tunnel. God's not abandoned you. You have such good gifts inside of you and such strength, and God's going to redeem this thing. And God's going to use this to help you to minister to other people. We can validate the hope at the end of their struggle. The 3 E's. Number 1, expect God to show up. When we're in the ministry of caring for people, as all ministry endeavors do, but for some reason it just kind of jumps to the forefront as being so crucial in this, we've got to be in prayer. In and of ourselves, we have little to offer hurting and wounding and struggling people. But the Spirit of God in me has something to offer. It says that rivers of life will flow from us. And as I tap into that Spirit that's inside of me, I want to expect that river of life is going to flow out and it's going to bring encouragement. It's going to bring life. But that comes from a vibrant, active, ongoing relationship with Christ. So it comes from, I don't want to simplify it to being prayed up and having read your Scripture, but we have to have that relational intimacy with God so we have something to offer to that other person. And then we're specifically praying for that person and their needs. Maybe it's something that you knew ahead of time. You got a phone call about someone who's sick and needs a meal made, and you're going to deliver that meal. On the way, you can pray for that person, for their healing, for their encouragement, for wisdom to what to say when you get there. And then we believe in faith and in hope that when we show up, we're going to have the mind of Christ, and His Spirit will work through us, and we'll be able to be His representative. It feels like we're kind of in such a natural thing. There's a natural physical need, and I'm showing up in my natural body to meet that physical need. But it should be just awash in the love and the grace and the Spirit of God when we show up. And we should be expecting God to show up when we minister to people, and that real life and encouragement is going to flow. The second E is empower. It's real easy, I made reference to this earlier, for people to fall into victim mentality, particularly if they struggle with certain areas emotionally. They can fall into victim mentality. We can empower them to let them know that they have a choice. that circumstances aren't beyond their control. They're not a victim, that there's a relationship between the choices that they make and the outcomes that happen. We can help them see that. And then again, we can hold them responsible and hold them accountable. This is often a difficult thing to do that are wallowing in bad feelings over a long period of time, taking on a victim mentality, but it can be something that we can lovingly do. And it's not coming down on them and beating them over the head because they're struggling with those things. It's helping them to open their eyes and see that they are empowered people by the grace of God, that they do have the agency of choice and that their choices affect their outcomes. They're just not helpless victims of things that happen to them. We can empower them. And the last one, this will, I think, happen very, very rarely, and I pray that it doesn't happen very often, but I think I'd be doing us a disservice if we didn't talk about these things. We need to eliminate danger. On the outside chance that you run into someone who is contemplating suicide, those are the things you refer. We're going to talk to that about more of that later. But if someone is threatening to harm themselves, if there's drugs in the picture, if they happen to talk about that they're actively involved in some crime endeavor, they're burglarizing things or they're abusing other people, if there's abuse involved, if they're recklessly promiscuous or something, we should try to do what we can to eliminate things that are actively harming their physical or emotional well-being. And that often, almost always, will involve getting other people involved, whether it's someone here from the church or if we're talking about abuse situations or harming themselves or others, we're pretty much mandated to get professionals involved. So on those rare occasions that we have to eliminate danger, we just have to be prepared to do that. Has anyone been in a situation already where that has been an issue? Where you had to make a call or something because someone was threatening to hurt themselves? Okay. I'm not surprised that someone in this room of a dozen people has experienced that, but I think it's also instructive that it's been only 1 in a dozen people that has experienced it so far. So I don't want to scare anyone off from caring for people and think, oh my gosh, if I do more of this, this is going to happen. It probably won't, but we got to be ready, and by the grace of God, be prepared to make a difference if it does. All right. The next section, examples of questions you can ask. And I want to get your guys' input in a brainstorming session. If you're going to talk to someone who you know is struggling or has a specific need, they're sick, they're in the hospital, they just had a baby and are having extra help, they had an accident, they need help cleaning their house, whatever it is that you're involved in, what can we ask them? How can we engage them in conversation that gets to the real root of whatever it is that's going on so that we can minister the love of Christ to that need? What question can we ask a person in conversation to get to that root issue and need? And really in a kicking off the conversation way that then goes deeper. Bob, you're thinking of something?
Thought that came to me is, how can I serve you?
There you go. Great. How can you serve? That's one of the very things that I'd written down. I phrase it as, what do you need right now?
Right, same idea.
Now, in small group settings, we talk a lot about open-ended questions versus closed questions. And in a small group study, we're encouraged to ask open-ended questions. An open-ended question is a question that can't be answered by just yes or no, or can't be answered by one word. For example, how are you doing is a closed question. For those of you that have had teenagers, you ask someone, how are you doing? You're going to get or you're going to get fine. In a small group setting, you want open-ended questions. In this kind of setting, it's not such of a big deal when you're talking with someone. That's a very valid question. How are you doing? You might just get or fine or good. Then you've got to be prepared for the follow-up question, which is, it might be, can you tell me more? It might be, how did this week go? It might be, how's your relationship with your son or daughter? It might be, hey, how's your relationship with your husband going? You mentioned that you were really struggling with that. It might be, how's your time with the Lord? So you just have to be prepared. If you are starting with a closed question that gets you a one-word answer, you just got to be ready to have that follow-up question that continues to get to the root of the problem. Can you think of any other type questions that might be helpful in that situation? It's funny, we don't think about this very often, do we? We just naturally go in and flow into conversation. There's nothing wrong with that. That can tend to default to all the superficial stuff. And I do this a lot. Did you see the game last night? How was work? Which may or may not be a superficial question, depending on what has happened. Hey, I like the color of your carpet. When did you get that? We can really default to the superficial stuff when it would probably be more productive to go in intentionally using that time that God has given us with this person that is in need to move the conversation forward, move their situation forward, move their relationship with God forward. So it might be, how can I pray for you? What do you need? How can I help you? And particularly in this season, it might be helpful, it might be appropriate to ask, particularly if you know they're struggling with stress and busyness in general, hey, how are you feeling about this whole season in our church? How are you feeling about this advance initiative? I know you took on extra roles. Are you okay? Are you doing all right? Are you busy? Are you stressed? How are you feeling about the future of our church? It could be productive, particularly in this season, to delve in to that realm. I mean, if it's awkward and not natural and it would be forced in the conversation, don't feel like you have to. But if you think that might have something to do with their overall stress nature, their overall feeling of being overwhelmed, or if you just want to generally speak hope and encouragement into our situation as a whole, it might not be a bad idea to look at that. So things I'd written down were, how are you doing, which is the very, very basic general close-ended question, which should and can lead to follow-up questions you should have. What do you need? How can I pray for you? How can I help you? How are you doing with the advance changes? I did want to talk about the last couple of sections there, when to refer and how to refer. Are we taking a break?
Now you're good.
Okay.
Jeff, I guess another,
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, if
another
you-
thing that I would put in there,
Please do.
you may have alluded to it, but I would be inclined to ask a person what they're experiencing is impacting them both emotionally, I think you've alluded to that, but also spiritually.
So it could be, yeah, I mean, you could even ask it the very way you said it. How is what you're going through affecting your relationship with your families? How is what you're going through affecting your life at church? What you're going through affecting how you interact with your friends? How is what you're going through affecting your relationship with God? Are you still setting aside a time for God? Anything else regarding those type of questions? All right. If you run into a situation that is more serious, really the basic overarching fundamental rule of when to refer someone to someone else is very simply when you don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. That's the first overarching rule. When you feel not equipped to help this person with what they're sharing, that is basically the first rule. And you absolutely, positively don't need to feel bad about the fact that you don't feel equipped to handle the situation that has come up. If it is something like, I'm being abused, or I'm abusing someone, or I'm struggling with suicide, or I just shoplifted from the store, or whatever, and you, for whatever reason, if you feel like you're not equipped, you're going to listen well, you're going to speak encouragement. There might be a little challenge in there, but at some point you're going to say, I don't think I have the answer that was really going to help us here. Can we talk about finding you the help that you need? And we'll talk more about how to do that. But that's the first thing. Anytime that you feel like you don't know what to do, you're going to look for help, and that will most often involve perhaps letting David know. And then if it's a serious thing, David will find the suicide hotline or the alcohol abuse hotline or whatever. If you have that information with you and you're aware of that currently, you can engage that conversation with that person too, getting them the help that they need. But starting with letting David know, and then he can take whatever. He will either step in and do the helping himself, or he'll make a phone call to whatever hotline is necessary to get them the help they need. Made reference to this earlier, the two things that we're mandated to report on if there's any kind of abuse that comes forward, and if someone says they're struggling with harming themselves or harming someone else, we have to report those things. So those are two things that we have to refer appropriately. And that, again, might start with a call to David, or it might be, yeah, go ahead.
When you talk about have to mandated for abuse, is it only child abuse, or so is it under
Spousal
18,
abuse.
or is it spousal abuse or elder abuse?
You know what? Good question.
I thought it was just child abuse.
I think it is mandated for children. If you hear an adult situation, I would say you absolutely need to let the pastoral staff know. You need to let someone else know. Let David know, or Joey, or me, or any of the elders. Let some church leader know, and then working together, those people probably ought to make a decision on how to move forward, and that would probably involve looking into that specific situation and what our legal requirements are in that situation. But I do think you're right. I think it's mandated for under 18, and I think it's not mandated for adults, but we still have to have a church leadership-based discussion on how to handle that situation.
I've had really good luck with just calling the hotline and asking them what they think I should do, and they can guide you from there and tell you the laws and also advice and stuff. So it's never a bad idea to just call.
Great.
Who are you calling?
Child Protection Services.
Oh, see,
in my
okay.
situation, but what is the number, like 201 or something, the help hotline or something? Or,
I didn't know, but I mean, it'd take 30 seconds with your phone to figure out who to call. You literally type in, who do I call for abuse, and you'll get a number.
yeah.
So if I was on the ball, I could have had a list of numbers for today, but I didn't do that. All right, other reasons you might want to refer. If you are burnt out, if it's a person that is going through a very legitimate needy situation and it's taking a lot of hours, or they're just very emotionally needy and want undue attention from you and undue hours, it might get to the point where you just feel burnt out and you've got to invite someone else into the situation. If there's a serious medical or psychological concern, you want to get some help and referral. It could be, any number of physical issues, particular to men or women that come up in the physical realm. If there's mental issues, if you realize that they're very depressed or anxious, or if it's an obsessive compulsive disorder, conduct disorder, all the kind of things that are out there, you'll want to get help with those things. If you find out again that they are actively involved in some kind of crime, you want to get some help, and it might very well involve reporting them for what they're doing. It will probably come to that, but you want to get some wisdom and advice on how to handle that. And the last thing I have for when to refer is when you have opposite gender concerns. Although there are some people of the male persuasion here this morning, if I'm not mistaken, I think our deacons are all female, correct? Mm-hmm. So it's not that you can't minister to a guy and that guys can't minister to a girl. It ought to be done in a public place. Don't be doing it in a house when they're by themselves, or if you're in the bedroom of their house or whatever. Yeah. Don't be anywhere where you're alone with them. Make sure it's public. And you just have to be aware if things are going in a direction where it shouldn't go, if either they or you are finding your emotions getting involved in ways that it shouldn't. So if opposite gender concerns come up. How to refer. Really, there's three options. You can do it together. You can say, hey, can we go talk to someone else about that? I know you're really struggling and I feel like I'm not able to help you the way you need. I'll go with you. Can we go and talk to someone together? That's probably the one that they will be most open to hearing. Mm-hmm. They'll feel their encouragement. You're not abandoning them. And when you refer, you're not abandoning someone. You need to let them know, I'd like you to talk to this person, but I'm still going to be there for you. I still want to encourage you. I still want to support you. You can still call me. We can still get together for coffee. I'm not abandoning you. So the most effective is probably going together. If they're resistant to getting help, but they need it, you might find yourself in a situation where you have to do it for them, where you are getting someone else's input, or you're making that phone call, and you probably ought to let them know that you're doing that, and you've got to be very sure to let them know that you're not trying to out them or get them in trouble, that it's your love, your care and concern for them is why you're making this phone call or finding help for them. The third way to refer is to ask them if they feel comfortable getting the help they need. Will you call the the psych center tomorrow? Will you call the alcohol abuse hotline tomorrow? And if they say they are willing to do that, that is fine. You absolutely, positively have to have a follow-up conversation with them. And on the front end, you usually set a date. Okay, hey, you're really struggling. Can you call? Let's say it's Monday, and you say, please call by Wednesday, or please call even by tomorrow, Tuesday, and I'm gonna follow up with you and just see if you did that. And if you call back and they haven't done it, that's probably when you can either give them one more chance. I would be inclined to say, hey, let's do this together, okay? Let's go and visit these people together. Or I'm going to come over. Let's make this phone call together. Questions, comments, confessions, or complaints on the referral process? I said, don't know what to do. And then we talked about abuse and harm to self or others, threatening harm to self or others.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a second of how to refer. Could we-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could we go together?
It's go together, they do, or you do.
Okay. Got it.
All right, over to the back side of your sheet. A simple process for loving everybody well. Doesn't that sound great if we really did that? I've put it into two categories here. Either they initiate or you initiate. And what I mean by that is, I don't know what the current balance is from what the work that the deacons are currently doing. I do know that whoever my deacon has been, at least 3 or 4 times a year, I get a card from them saying, I'm praying for you, I'm thinking for you if you need anything. That's them initiating. That's the deacon. That's you initiating care for someone else. They initiate, that is, you get a phone call. So-and-so had a baby, they need a meal. Someone broke a leg, they need their lawn mowed. So-and-so is struggling, they need to talk. That's them initiating. What do you think the current... Like, what's the balance? Is it you're getting calls of needs, or you're initiating and writing cards or making phone calls?
I feel like I initiate a lot more.
You initiate a lot more than getting a call of, okay, great. What's that?
I get very few calls.
You get very few calls. Okay.
Yep.
I've only gotten like one call in 3 years of being a deacon.
A call of,
And that
okay.
was just for prayer. So, yeah, nobody's really, I reach out.
Okay, great. And that's the part that I wanted to actually talk and focus on, and hopefully help us do more of, and more thoroughly of, and more intentionally of, again, to love people well during this season. So I want to do a big what if with all of us, and have you all dream with me about possibilities. So I have 3 things there: 10 minutes a week, 5 minutes each week, and 1 time each week, or each every other week, each month, whatever you have capacity for. What if we set aside 10 minutes a week, and in that 10 minutes, you intentionally sent emails, sent text, sent cards to people? You're not just waiting until there's a need. You're not just waiting until God brings it to mind to send something, that you're setting aside 10, 15 minutes every week. And that's all we're talking about, a 10-minute period in a 7-day span where you sit down and you crank out 2 handwritten cards, 3 emails, and 5 texts. And you can do that easily in 10 minutes. And you're sending them to the people in the church, just letting them know, we love you, we care about you, I want to encourage you, I'm praying for you, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I pray for you? How can I serve you? What if, number 2 there, 5 minutes each week? So we started with 10 minutes, now we're adding 5. What if 1 a week you made 1 phone call, 1 5-minute phone call to someone in the church? Hey, I was just thinking of you. I wanted you to know I so appreciate our friendship. I so appreciate you at our church. I see how you serve and don't get any credit. I just want to encourage you, let you know that I love you. I want you to know that I'm praying for you. How can I pray for you right now? Pray with them on the phone if you want to. And then ask them, what do you need? Is there anything I can do for you? 10 minutes a week, 5 minutes a week, and then what if 1 time a month, or if you have the time, maybe once every other week, or if you got lots of time and you do it once a week, you set up an in-person with a person. Hey, can we go get coffee? Can I come over and help you clean your house? You want to go shopping with me? Go get our groceries together? 1 time a week, and in person with someone in the church. It wouldn't take long, I bet you, at least every other month, if not every month, every single person in this church could get a handful of non-personal contacts, and at least one in-person contact from someone who loves and cares about them. I think this is very powerful. And I've been in youth ministries where we've done this with the youth. We've had a list of all the youth, and we had 2 columns, not in-person contacts and in-person contacts. So the not in-person contacts were phone call, email, text, send them a card. The in-person contacts were show up at the house, went to a restaurant, took them to the mall, went shopping together, and other. And, went to their baseball game, but whatever, a column for other. And we would keep track and make sure that every single person got not in-person contacts and in-person contact, basically on a monthly basis. It depends on the size of the people that are doing the ministering and the number of people you have that are being ministered to, but basically on a monthly or every other monthly basis. There is, in my experience in ministry, there has been nothing in ministry that has been more effective to keeping people around, not just falling through the cracks, keeping them engaged, and making them feel loved and appreciated. And they worship more, they volunteer more, they give more, they complain less when we do this. So I guess my question and my challenge is this something that we are kind of up for? And I want to ask you to dream even a little bit more bigger with me by asking and presenting. Joey and the church, we've just bought this new church management system called Church Community Builder. What we wanted to do was set up what they call a process in there, basically a page or set of pages where all our people are listed, and this process is listed of ways to contact and love people well. Now the powerful thing about this is once we all get login information to this, any one of us can access this system from any computer and any mobile phone. You can get to it. So what I think would be possible and would be powerful is every time the people that are charged with the care of others and those that are interested in caring well for others, when you do something, you send a card to someone, you visit them, you have a phone conversation with them, you go into the system and you simply mark who I contacted and what I did, and you just put a check there or however the system works out. And then anyone else that goes into that system will see who's been contacted and who hasn't, who might need an outreach and who might not. And then when you do your thing, you go in there and you mark it off. It might be, like I know the deacons have people, the 9 or 10 or 12 people that they're responsible for. It might be you sticking with your 9 or 10 people, but it really won't matter because it will be clearly accounted for, and it won't be a matter of, oh, I just called him yesterday, now you're calling him today, or this person hasn't gotten a call in 9 years. No, it'll be simple as opening your phone or sitting in front of the computer and realizing who has been loved well and who has not been loved well. And I would even suggest things like we really ought to be thinking about the people that are like on the fringe of falling away. Like I'm just thinking the Chad Fagans. I haven't seen Wendy Colgrove in a long time. I haven't seen Jen Salisbury in a long time. You could probably, I bet you we could think of a dozen others if we split it up. We really got to be thinking about those things and reaching out to them. Maybe it will even be people that have, well, I guess this wouldn't be in the system, but there might be people that have left, but you know that they aren't in another church, so it's not like we're trying to steal them back for another church. If they just kind of floated away, we can contact them. But particularly the fringe people, trying to engage them again and bringing them back on. I just think this software is going to be so simple and so powerful to help us to be intentional in how we love each other well. And I'll leave it to you. If you guys are on board and want to help with this and do this in a more intentional way, I'll leave it to you on what you think the cycle should be. Hey, every month we should have everyone with an impersonal contact and a personal contact. Or maybe it's every other month, or maybe it's every 3 months. I guess I don't care, and there's nothing magical about that. It's just it would be so great if we had we do have a system. It would be so great if we use this system as a way to make sure that every single person in our church is loved well, especially those that are on the fringe or are struggling. If you are uber motivated and want to go above and beyond the call of duty, what if we also had a way to account for anyone that wasn't here on a Sunday? If I mean, I don't know if if it's simple as someone taking attendance or what that would look like, or if each of you are looking for your 9 or 10 people that you're accountable for. What you got, Joey?
Well, we could do that with the software.
Great. I was hoping you'd say that.
Well, we could, because all it would take is someone in the balcony kind of looking around, and it sounds kind of bad, but like marking people who are here, and then you can basically look at the system and say, okay, who hasn't been here in 3 weeks, and maybe we should reach out to them and see if they're okay.
Exactly. And I would say even the first week that someone isn't here, if you've got the time, and if you are uber motivated, and if you're into this caring for people is my thing, and you have the vision for how this is going to build our church, and this is what this is about, building people, building Christ's kingdom, and it will cause our church to grow because it will keep people that would otherwise go away, it will keep them here. So the next big uber step is we're taking attendance. We've got 9 people that we know are usually here and they weren't here that Sunday. What if those 9 people got a phone call or got a call that said, hey, we noticed when you're not here, church isn't the same when you're not here. We just want you to know we were thinking of you and we love you. Even if you know it's someone that's not going anywhere, it's Paul Craig and he's on a conference trip somewhere. Wouldn't it bless him? Hey, church is not the same when you're not here. It's not just trying to wrangle people and make sure they don't leave. It's just ministering and loving to each other well. And there's no one who not like getting a card like that when they're not here, and just letting them know that someone loved them and cared for them. So I'd like to encourage us and for you guys to talk and plan on your own at other times in your meetings how we can make use of the church community builder system. And if you're willing to do this in a very intentional way and making sure that everyone is loved for and cared for well, particularly those that we know are on the fringe or particularly those that we know are struggling. And then if you're uber motivated, can we keep track of people who aren't here and make sure that they know that they're loved and missed as well. I'm going to turn this over to Joey for the caring for new people part. Any questions or comments as we're transitioning?
One of the purposes of the friendship folder is to try to keep track of people who are not here.
That's the
Yellow-
red folder?
Red folder, yeah.
Okay.
That's why.
But it's like on one side, and sometimes if like nobody's sitting down there, it never gets to us.
And I think if we're relying on their willingness to write information down, I think if we're going to do this keeping track, and I hate saying that word, keeping track of who's not here, because it's not that kind of thing. It's to love and care for them well. It's probably going to have to be someone other than those people to write down whether they're here or not. Someone just looking over and, like Joey said, entering into the system or something.
Yeah, like example, like I'm on the balcony pretty much every week. I haven't signed a friendship folder.
Yeah.
So it would say I haven't been to church for the past 3 years.
Are we still friends though?
No.
Oh, you know, I should probably mention, and I hope Dave doesn't mind me putting him on the spot. Dave did offer and set forward to say that he's going to oversee this process, particularly the online part. So his role will be a lot just looking at it, and you might get a call that says, hey, Sister Susie hasn't gotten a call in 5 months. Can you give her a phone call? Or you might get a call that says, hey, so-and-so hasn't gotten a card in a while. Can you call them? So as everyone's entering into the system, David has offered to kind of supervise that and just look over and keep track of making sure that everyone is being loved well in an intentional manner.
Is that going to just be certain people that can get into that, or the whole church?
Yeah, I can speak on that one.
Okay, go ahead.
I just have one more
Sure.
thought on the attendance thing. I just think we need to be very careful to not turn that into something that could be seen as legalistic or pressureful, because people do have very busy lives, and just that second contact would have to be something that was couched in great love and concern rather than a keeping track mentality, because I think people can revert to, oh great, I go visit this church, now they're keeping track of me, I wasn't there one Sunday and they're on me already.
It wouldn't, and it wouldn't have to be in every single time. We'd have to work out the details.
Yeah.
Do you wait till they're not there for 3 weeks? Do you wait till they're not there for 2 weeks? Is it the 1 week? Do you do it every time they're not there? Probably not. Maybe not. And it would have to be done in a spirit of overwhelming love and care, not, hey, we're checking up on you of why you weren't here. And that really is my heart, and I'm sure that's your heart also. It's not to check up on you. It's to make sure that you know that you're loved and missed, and we miss you when you're not here. I was going to say something else, too, that you just said something, making sure that...
to Kathy's point, and I know this won't happen, but if every Monday people who weren't here got a call, they would start to think, man, we're being tracked.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but sensitivity is huge, hugely
Yeah.
important.
And I would probably do that via a card rather than a phone call for that follow-up for people that weren't here.
And I like the phrase you gave us too, that churches would be the same when you're not here. That's a real nice way of saying it. Just miss you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I want to stress too that the system has privacy settings as well, and I think it's really important to talk about that because, especially with the finance team, that's a huge thing. But with attendance, it's not like anyone can just log in and see who's been to church and who hasn't. And that's not even really the point. The point is that people aren't here, which means there may be something wrong. Maybe there's not, and it's really cool if David has access to it, so he can use his discretion. Are you okay, David? Do you need a follow up or? I just think it's really really cool if David's the one funneling through all this, he would know the sort of personal side of it and the sort of systematic. He can see maybe they've been gone for 3 weeks, but he also knows that they're taking a vacation to Florida for 3 months. So he's not going to be like, hey, and all of that done in love. So yeah, that's kind of how it works, and everything is off limits to people who don't need to see it. So
Well, I meant the contacting of people. If I send a card to somebody, who can see that?
like a card
No.
that
Do you-
like
Well,
a
like
physical
Jeff
card.
Just
No.
talking about, yeah.
Well, how,
Mark it in the system.
they can, if you see somebody not being contacted, then somebody can jump in and do that.
I think
I
it's
thought that's
only
what you
the
said.
deacons or only the people on the care team,
Yeah.
not the whole
Okay.
Right.
follow up. I think.
Yes.
Right.
So just to go into just a little bit, there's the thing that Jeff was referring to is called a process in the system, and there is things called process managers. The only people who can see those notes are the people who are in that process, being the deacons. So that's why it's important that Dave has sort of an eye on it, but anyone can enter a
I
note
see.
about
I
someone.
get it.
So, yeah, that's kind of where that flows from. And totally the heart just is, we miss you, we love you. And this is obviously it's not something we want to broadcast that we're tracking attendance now. It's just it's a very behind the scenes way to make sure people are loved well. So.
You can't overlook. We gotta make sure we're loving for each other well. We gotta make sure that the carers are being cared for, leaders. So, probably if you've got your list of 9 or 10 people, probably everyone ought to add at least the name of one of their deacon on that list to make sure that that deacon is being cared for well. And maybe that's the part that David can help also make sure that he's caring for you guys and for the elders well. Also, but it is important that we're caring for each other. The carers get cared for.
So, Jeff was talking about caring for people in our church. I'm going to talk about caring for people who have not yet visited our church. And I remember this time a couple years ago when I was in college, I was going through a rough period when stuff was overwhelming, college, work, all that stuff, and I really didn't feel equipped to handle. I didn't feel I had the capacity to go to kind of do what I needed to do for school and for work, and it was a rough season. I had toyed with the idea of reaching out to student services and getting some help. One bad day, I finally caved in and said, you know what, I just need some help. I can't do this, and that was a big step for me. I reached out, talked to the nice lady at the Student Services Center, got a call the next day, was in class, I couldn't take it, but she left a message, hey, Joey, so glad you reached out to us, about this and this, and here's a couple times we can meet next week. Like a true, proud, vain guy, I was like, you know what, that was just a bad day, I don't actually need help, I'll be fine. And, a month went by, completely forgot about it. I got another phone call from an unknown number then. It was the same lady. She left a message and she said, hey, Joey, she remembered my name. You approached me about these specific things, and I really want to help you. Can we meet this week at this certain time? And first of all, my mind was blown because I was single at the time and no one had ever paid that much attention to me before, which was great. But second of all, it incredible that she would not only remember all those details about me, but still care that much time later. And that was an experience of love that I will never forget, and really outlines what follow-ups for new people is really all about. And I was, honestly, it was just the act of being surprised by love. And I know that people, follow-ups are not a new concept in any means. We've always done them in different ways and formats. But I'm hoping with a good strategy, we can do it good this time. We can do it better, and we can do it more consistently. We can do it without people falling through the cracks. And I was just wondering if anybody had another example of how you were surprised by love, and someone maybe reached out to you and surprised you with the amount that they cared, and what that felt like.
I remember when Jeff and I first came here, we moved to the area, and it was Nancy that said something. She was just incredibly empathetic with, wow, that must be really difficult for you guys to be in a new place and not have any family or connections. We'd love to have you over to our house for dinner. Come meet our family. Come meet some people at the church. And that the fact that she understood how painful and difficult it was for us to make this move and to start from scratch, and then that she reached out and opened her house and invited us in. It was really incredibly powerful. And then, of course, all the people in the church were very open and welcoming and loving too. So,
And to piggyback on that, I don't know if it was after our first visit to the church or the second or when it was, but we got the muffin visit from David.
that
And
was
Russ.
amazing.
Was that us?
Yeah, you and Russ.
And
It was
it meant a lot.
awesome.
It was great.
Yeah.
I got the muffin visit too
Yeah.
from
Where's my
Deanna and Cindy Towel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It was awesome.
They didn't call first, which
It was probably a good thing because
it's right because I wouldn't.
Yeah.
It is instructive.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
nice.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done, Jason. You
Oh, I
didn't
am
mean to
done.
talk over you. And David and Russ are two of the people that I probably know closest. So they're both involved in the men's group that we had. So a simple beginning like that bore real relational, even ministry fruit.
That's good. Yeah. Well, I really think it's a powerful concept, and I really think if we can remember that time when someone surprised us, and it's sometimes hard to think of that moment, but when I feel like that feeling that I had when I was called like that, I always think that's how I want to be to someone else when I'm reaching out to them. That's who I want to be. I don't want to be the, hey, you weren't at church last week, or we're tracking you and your location is this, and we just want to make them feel like we care, because we do care, but they don't know we care until we let them know we care. And that's the gap, is they don't know how we feel, and sometimes it breaks down to a systematic thing that we want to care, they just don't know because something fell through the cracks.
If you show up at my house with food, I'm going to feel cared for.
Good to know. So it's an interesting stat. If someone walks in the church for the first time, they and a year later, they are more likely to be in church regularly attending. Actually, around 75% more likely. If in the first 12 weeks from when they visited church, they were followed up 4 times. They were connected with 4 times. So 4 times in the first 12 weeks creates a huge spike in their actual involvement with the church a month, 2 months, a year down the road. And this is kind of what I want to talk about, because there's so many different things you can do for follow-up, but we want to focus on what actually works. And this is the research that Jeff has done. He's done a lot of different case studies of different churches and research, combined with my experience of being on the New People's team for 2 years at Hillsong. And we kind of amalgamated this really cool plan that will take the best of what needs to happen without making it too complicated, or without making them feel like we have a system that we're enrolling them into. Because everything's in place beforehand to make it easy for that connection, that muffin visit, or that call, or whatever it is. And I'm really hoping and really expecting, with a good implementation of this plan, that we're not only going to get nobody falling through the cracks, which I think would be huge, but we're going to actually cut down on the admin time of sending emails and the confusion and all that kind of stuff too. And you might be thinking this is way too optimistic, but I'm very confident, because of all the thinking and planning that's gone into the front end,
that automates everything that is dreary and dull about following people up and expedites to the point where we're actually doing what is important, which is connecting with them and making them feel authentic and not making them feel like they're part of a system, but communicating that love that we have, but sometimes there's a gap there where we don't make the actual effort and stuff like that. So the plan really is very, very simple. First of all, we need to have them visit our church. So if they come on a Sunday morning, it's a matter of them. The plan would be sometime in the service, a worship assistant would say, "Hey, if you're new to our church or you're visiting, we're so glad you're here. We love visitors. You know, we're so grateful that you check us out. We have the ability to donate $5 in your name to a charity of your choice, and we'd love you to fill out a card, and we'll send you all the information so you can choose the charity we'd love to donate in their behalf." We can do that via the online form, or we can do that via the card in front of you. And we can even encourage them to pull out their phone and fill out the online form, or pull out the card and fill it out right there in service. And they can drop the form off at the Welcome Center, or if they do it online, it actually expedites it because it's already in the system. So they do that, and they think, oh, wow, what a generous church. Like, they want to give $5 in my name. Or maybe they're just really willing and wanting to be more involved. Maybe they need some help, because on that Connect card there's a field saying, do you need any prayer? Do you need any help? How can we help you, or how can we help you to get connected with our church in a way that would be meaningful to you? So after all of that is put in the system, there is an automatic email generated. So this would be the first thing that would happen. And this is where the kind of cutting back on admin things happen. And without getting too nerdy, basically an email is sent to them that says, "Hey, this is me. This is Dave. Whatever. This is Joey. Thanks for checking out our church. Here's a list of ministries we'd love to donate $5 to on your behalf." And then they can actually email back and say, "I would love you to donate on this one." And then that starts a conversation. You're already connecting with them and saying, "Oh, great, so good. Have you worked with them before?" Or maybe they leave a note and say, "Oh, yeah, it was fun checking out your church. I'd love to donate to this one." You know what I'm saying? So there's already a conversation happening, and things are rolling. After
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. And then, so this is all the process stuff. To them, we're just saying, "Hey, we're grateful you're here, and we'd love to donate to a cause on your behalf." At that point, it gets into the real meat of the follow-up, which is people connecting with people. But is there anything so far that's confusing or that needs clarification or questions?
Who's going to tell the worship assistants to do this?
Well, this is part of the plan. I got a message from Becca asking the young adults, "Hey, what changes would you like to see? Elements of service would you like to see changed?" And I included this in the message, this little thing that, like, "Hey, it would be great if the worship assistant could say this during service. If there's any visitors, we're glad you're here. We're grateful you're checking us out. We'd love to donate $5 in your name. Please fill out the card." It literally takes, I timed it, it takes a minute to say what I've written out for them to say. And I think it'd be really cool right after the fellowship time, as a transition out of that, everybody's shaking hands. He just gets up and says, "Hey, so if you're here, so glad you're visiting, blah, blah, blah," and then kind of launch into that. So.
Sounds great.
So, but that doesn't answer my question. Who's going to actually communicate that to the worship assistants?
So I'd be more than happy to sit down with the team and tell them exactly why.
Can you write it out, kind of so it could be emailed to people? That would be faster, I think.
Sure.
I don't know when you want to start it, but.
So my thought was not for probably another month, because it needs the website to be updated. So a few things have to happen. I did, in that message to Becca, I did actually write out a script, but I will have all the information readily available, written and everything.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Because we were going to have a very informal sit-down kind of training with the worship assistants also, just about how to think in terms of being inviting, welcoming, warm, maybe tell a disarming story, informal, inviting, and in that little training, we will introduce this topic. And this is going to be standing operating procedure for every week after that. This will be happening. So when we get together to meet with the worship assistants, everyone will know. They'll have the script in front of them if they want to use it. And it will become very natural as you start seeing it happen.
Yeah. And not only like what it is, but more importantly, like explaining why it's important too. You know, I have a couple of things printed out here. These are just examples of the welcome card. I don't have enough for everybody, but I thought I'd just give them out. And if you want to take a look, that's a different church's welcome card, but there's a couple of interesting things about it. First of all, it highlights the website. And before everybody's like, oh no, technology in church. Just hold on a second. It's basically, the reason it highlights the website on the front of the card, which is the top photo, is because the strategy that in a nutshell, the strategy we're using with the website is one called the Central Hub Strategy. So we're redesigning it with next steps in mind. So when someone hears about something in church, when someone hears there's, the Summer's Best 2 Weeks, Winter Carnival coming up, we want to actually place that information front and center with them so that they know that if they go to the website, they can see that information. They can find out all the details. They can get the location. They can sign up if they need to spend $5 or if they need to bring a snack. That's all in front of them. That frees up in church, during church, to be able to focus on the why. Focus on telling them why it's going to be awesome, why they should bring their friends. You don't need to actually tell them all the details of the events in service when you have their precious attention. You can focus that time in explaining some stories from the last time the event happened and how great it was, or how we're going to have this great thing coming up at the Winter Carnival that's going to be fun and they should check out. And I don't know if anyone's heard of like Simon Sinek, Start With Why, that kind of thing. It's a similar idea. If you tell people the what and the how, they kind of get overwhelmed, and what you want to do is just start with, hey, you should check this out. And if you can get them on board with the event and they want to come, they'll figure out how to get there. Yeah. So that's kind of why the website is laid out simply, because that's their access to all those details later on when they can do it on their own time.
So if we help them to see that this is something interesting, they can get the details from the website as needed. That's kind of the basic.
Yes.
We're giving them the hook.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right phrase, but giving them the why.
And what's interesting is that, like, and I sent this in the email to Becca as well, so you'll probably get that document, Mary. But if we, and it doesn't have to be super official or anything. Like, for example, Summer's Best 2 Weeks, Winter Carnival. Dawn and Nat talking together, hey, this was a really awesome thing that happened last year, sharing their favorite memory. This is a couple awesome things happening this year. Please come, invite your friends. It's going to be a great time. Can't wait to see you there. Keep it simple. This is why it's going to be great. This is how it's great in the past. Dawn loves it because her family loves it. And then people, their interest is piqued. We're not marketing anything to them. We're just saying this is why I enjoyed it, and this is why I think it's going to be great for your family. We're already doing it with Signs of the Kingdom. We're basically saying, hey, here's an event, here's all the times, blah, 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 please come. So we're actually going for that sign-up, that registration, whatever. But this is just doing it in a bit more of a way that our brains work. We just want to know why I should come first, and then you give them easy access to the how and the what later on if they need that information. And then, so that's basically a very quick rundown of that. But so that's why the website is highlighted. The rest of the fields, you'll notice there's no address or anything like that, and that's intentional. The less options you give people, the more action takes place. It's human psychology. If we ask for too many fields of information, studies have shown that people don't fill it out. They just give up. They're like, oh gosh, that's a lot of stuff. So
I can vouch for that.
And if you think about it, like, let's say you meet somebody at a gathering, a small group. When you meet someone new, do you ask for their address and their age range? Like, no. If you meet someone for the first time, you ask them maybe for their name, their first name, and their number. It's how it's how we work. But as churches, we love all the details, and then we can put them in the system, and we got them. But anyway, so that was a little bit of a tangent. But anyway, that looks like what it looks like. So that's pretty cool. And they would look similar on the website as well. So after someone fills out that card, the email is sent out automatically, and that gives them the opportunity to start the conversation. At that point, I mentioned it before, 4 connections within the first 12 weeks. They measured that and they said, you know what, when there is a connection between someone in our church and that person, there is actual difference in the way that they're involved 12 months later. So this is a baseline. There can be muffins, there can be visits to the house, everything like that. And this is how this all starts basically. You would basically get a person to follow up with their name and their number, or the name and their email, and you'd reach out to them with a simple message saying, hey, we're so grateful you came to our church. Is there any way I can help you? Any way I can pray for you? Is there anything that I can give you more information about in our church? And it's a simple follow-up, and that it doesn't have to be a formula, because it's very dependent on who you are and you expressing your love to them in whatever way. But if we do that within the first week, within the second and third week, within the 4th to 7th week, and the 8th to 12th week, and we just have the system to make sure that we're actually doing it and recording the results. So if someone says, yes, they are interested in the sound team, they want to get involved, we can have that written down and can get to the right people. And this basically keeps us all accountable. So the only thing that's really needed is friendly people willing to make phone calls, willing to reach out to people and say, we love you and we thank you for coming to our church. Is there any way I can pray for you? Is there anything I can do for you? Is there any information I can give you about our church? Maybe even ask them, like, why did you come to our church? You know, were you looking for hope? Were you looking for purpose? Were you looking for community? You probably wouldn't say those words, but you know what I'm saying. And what we found is that people aren't looking for a friendly church. It is important to be friendly on Sunday morning, but people are looking for friends. People are looking for authentic relationships, and the best way to keep someone around for the long term is for them to develop a genuine connection with someone in our church, someone who's already plugged into our church. And once that connection is made, it's a lot easier for them to be involved in the future. And as the person following them up, you don't need to be that person. In fact, one of the major roles of a follow-up person is just saying, hey, you know, you mentioned that you love playing the drums. Russ has a drum set, you know, or something like that. Or, like, you like wrestling? Oh, Garrett loves wrestling. You got to meet Garrett, you know. And just use those similar sort of connections and stuff to engage people. So you don't have to be friends with everybody. You're not trying to make a bajillion different connections and be a super social butterfly. You're just communicating that we love them, and you're connecting them in whatever way they would like, and connecting them to people. So that's really all it is. Everything is thought out, systematized, and processed so that what's front and center, what actually is important, the connection, the phone call, the actual reaching out to that person and expressing the love that we have for them, is actually communicated. So basically, that's kind of the process, and I don't know if I went too fast or if any comments or questions on that.
I was just thinking of one of the more recent stats I came across. It said that a new person will take 3 months to make a friend, and if they haven't in 3 months, you'll never see them again. They won't stay.
If they what?
If they haven't made a friend within 3 months, they won't stay. And I would be of the opinion that it probably is less than that time-wise, but that was what the stat said. That if they haven't made a friend in 3 months, they won't stay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
making
heard
friends.
something once about the number of contacts they get during the first couple of visits of people even saying hello. There's some statistics there
right.
too.
Sure, when they're here.
Yeah.
On a Sunday morning,
On a Sunday
yeah.
morning.
Right.
Yeah, if nobody says anything to you, you're not likely to come back. You know, if
right.
a couple people do, then you might be more likely.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that's where
I
it all
can remember.
starts.
Yeah.
I can remember the first day Lorraine Vasquez came to our church, and I welcomed her, and a lot of other people did, and she came back to me and she said, "I'm never going to remember who I met." So I took the directory because they were out on the counter, and I marked on there who they were, and I think that helped her because she could remember the names. So when she came back the next week, made her feel comfortable coming back.
That's
My
awesome.
wife just brought up to me at home the other day a real important principle. It's always difficult to grow a declining church back to health and flourishing. We're in the midst of doing that. It is many times more difficult to do that in a season when you don't have a head pastor. because when a new person comes in, we're not advertising, hey, we don't have a pastor, but they probably get figured out within a couple of weeks. They are a lot less likely to stay around when they realize we are still in that transition. The thing we have to offer, the thing that we can do, and really the two biggest things that people are looking at, one is what was the preaching and the worship like? And that's where us not having a full-time pastor will come in. But the other thing is, did I make a friend? That's the thing we can offer to make people want to stay here. Why this church loves well, and I want to stay here. And that was, I've said this a million times, when we came here, that was one of the three things that made us stay. It was the best worship in town when Ben was here. Fritz really went out of his way to reach out to us and minister us, and it was the most loving, generous group of people we'd seen in a while, and that's what kept. And Fritz isn't here, and Ben isn't here, but we're still here. It's still the most loving, caring, generous group of people we've been around. This is our strength, and we just have to do more of it, more intentionally, overwhelmingly, to make people want to come back to visit us.
So basically, to sum it all up, to wrap it up, people's information will be put into the Church Community Builder system, and if you want to be involved with calling people out, this is all it would take. Essentially, you get reached out to, whether it's by phone call or email, or you can just check the app and it'll show you. But it'll have someone's name right there, and it'll have maybe some details if someone mentions in the note when they put them in the system, is looking for prayer, and then just reaching out to them 4 times within 12 weeks. Just giving them a call, sending them an email, and it really doesn't take any more than that. So being involved with follow-ups just means reaching out to people. Everything else is taken care of, the system and all that stuff and the plans and, just loving on people well. It just involves calling out to people and showing them love, and the system helps us keep accountable to doing that. It keeps us from having people fall through the cracks. But if you want to be involved with that, what I'm trying to do is build a team of people of different genders and different age groups, so we have the ability to reach out to people with someone that they might be relatively close to. And the encouraging thing for the team, not so encouraging for our church, we will probably have 1-2 visitors a week. So what I'm not looking for is a weekly meeting with like 5 hours of review of every single person and prayer and a whole thing. Just some people I can call to when we say, okay, we had Betty visit. She's looks like she might be around your age. Do you mind giving her a call and following up with her over the next 4 weeks? And that's what I'm looking for. So that's basically it. And I'd be happy to. I brought the laptop so I can actually show you the software if you're interested, but don't feel compelled because you won't actually need to interface with that. It's just there if you want to show you, but if you want to interested in being a person I can reach out to and say, hey, do you mind calling this person over the next 4 weeks, then I'd really appreciate it, and you can reach out to me anytime if you're interested.
Is it best to have the same person reach out to that person for 4 times in that 12 weeks, or is it better to have different people reach out to them? I'm just wondering.
In my philosophy, is it's best to have the same person unless you feel like they would make a genuine connection with someone else. During the conversation, you think, they would really connect with this person, and then you kind of pass them off to whoever that is. Even if they're not part of the follow-up team, someone they'd make a genuine connection with.
Like your example of using Russ. Here's a musical guy that maybe you guys could bond over for guitar or something like that. Is that
or truck driving or whatever it is.
Driving with Big Greg.
Or their favorite sports team.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about the logistics, but you're looking for people who are willing to make those follow-up calls, and then you've already got people that can, or maybe yourself, who are gonna reach out to us and ask us to make those follow-up calls. Is that right?
Yeah, there will be a point person making sure that everything gets done, but all I'm asking is for you to make a phone call to people. Yeah.
Cool.
Great. That's it. Should we pray or something? We should pray it out.
Yeah.
How about we do that?
Pray it out.
That'd be great. Dear God, thank you for this time that you've come and ministered to us as we learn about caring for people who are a part of our church for 50 years and people who haven't even visited yet, God. I pray that you would lead new people to our community. Lord, would you help us to communicate our love well? Would you help us to love people the way that you would love them? And God, would you help us to stay motivated and encouraged for the future as we look forward to growth and exciting plans, Lord? Would you help us to have the energy and the passion to follow up people well and show your love to them? And we pray this all in your mighty name, Jesus. Amen. Amen.